hey man, even as the pimping, you got to hold yourself accountable. You know what I mean? It ain't always the bitch that got to hold herself accountable. And it's going to be hard for you to get her to understand the concept of accountability when you don't exercise it yourself, when you don't live by it yourself, right?
Bitch, you want all this pimping you can't afford. Perform like a punk, but want a winner's reward. Some suckers give you points, but bitch, you never scored. If you ain't paying pimping, then bitch, you getting ignored. Okay, I'm so sick of these.
You know, see, I know, man. I know as the pimping, hey, man, one of the most difficult things for a pimp to do is come to a hoe and let her know that he was wrong about something. You know what I mean? Now, sometimes before you have to say out your mouth that you was wrong, you can just correct the wrong and move on, and it'll be all good, right? But certain wrongs that you do, certain mistakes that you make as a pimp, as a man, you can't just correct it and just keep on moving. Certain shit you gotta articulate it out your mouth. You know what? I was wrong. A lot of motherfuckers don't want to hear that shit. A lot of motherfuckers ain't gonna agree with that shit, but it's just the truth. I know because I had to do that myself. You know what I mean? It was a hoe that I had, and there was a situation. I ain't gonna get into all the details of the situation, but there was a situation that I bought her a car. It was a very nice car. You know what I mean? And she was real young at the time. And there was some things wrong, not just with the car itself, but the situation of me buying the car. You know what I mean? It was fucked up. So as a result, I made the decision to take the car and give it back to who I bought it from, right? Because it was too much. It was a messy ass situation, right? So I'm telling her, I'm like, look, you know what I mean? I know you like this car and all that, but you know, don't trip. We're gonna get another one. Matter of fact, we could get something even better than that. As nice as that car is, hey, shit, it's better shit out there. You know what I mean? We'll go get another one. She didn't want another one. She wanted that one. You know what I mean? She young at the time, and this is her first, you know, her first time having something like this. She didn't have cars before, but this was her first time having this kind of car. You know what I mean? And riding around in that motherfucker and, you know, pulling up and valeting in this car and jumping out with the Louis bag and, you know what I mean? You know, just looking real expensive and looking real fly and just, you know, this is her first time experiencing this type of shit. So it was short-lived. You know, so I took that shit away and gave it back to who I got it from. And I told her, you know, I'm explaining, because to me, you know, I'm older than her and I've done more than her in life. So I've had shit, and then not just that, but I'm a man. As a man, I'm looking at it differently because I know that, you know, this ain't the end all be all. This car don't make or break nothing. We go get another one, right? So I take the car, I give it back, and that was the beginning of the end with that hoe. And this was a real good hoe, right? This is one of the best hoes I ever had. I ain't gonna front, I ain't gonna sugarcoat it, I ain't gonna try to downplay it or nothing like that. This is a good hoe, right? Like, and that was the beginning of the end, me taking that car from her, right? So after I took that car back, she started doing all kind of shit she would never do. You know what I mean? Not handling certain responsibilities, like missing court dates, you know what I mean? Shit like, just give you an idea of the shit that was out of character for this bitch to do that she would never do before this car situation, but started doing after the car situation, right? You know, and at the time I'm looking at it like, man, this bitch is just on some bullshit. But after the situation was all over and it went bad and she wasn't around no more, I had to examine that shit and look at it and hold myself accountable. Like, you know what? that's my fault, you know? So just an example of one of the many things that she was doing that was out of character, right? Like one time she was in this city and I was in a whole nother state, right? And she went to jail. I paid her bail from where I was at. They had like a cash bond at the courthouse. You pay them $1,000. And it was one of them things, y'all know, when you go to court, you get the 1,000 back, right? So she go to jail. She don't even think I'm gonna bail her out because she knows she just was doing some punk shit right before, right? But that's my hoe. I'm the type of person, no matter what we going through, as long as you don't betray me or nothing like that, or you don't try to bring me no harm, or if we just having disagreements, I'm not going to leave you fucked up. You know what I mean? So even though we was kind of off key before she went to jail, I still reached for her. I sent 1,000 from another state away. You know what I mean? Bail her out of jail. She get out, I think like a Saturday or something like that, right? She got court Monday. She knows she got court Monday, and she knows that in order to get this 1,000 back, you know what I mean, she got to go to court, handle her business, get the 1,000 back, all good, right? Sunday night, she gets stupid drunk, pass out, and misses the court date Monday morning. Right? Pass out, miss the court date Monday morning, and then to add insult to injury, try to leave town and go to her mama's house, which is like 2,000 miles away. She like, fuck. She don't contact me. I don't even know what happened to the bitch. You know, Pimp kind of lightweight worried about the bitch. I'm like, damn, bitch ain't answering her phone. I'm checking the court thing. I know she didn't go to court. I'm like, damn, I'm thinking something wrong with the bitch. Something done happened to her, right? Whole time, the bitch like, fuck, I missed my court date. You know what? Fuck this shit. I'm gonna go to my mama's house. So she get on the highway. She driving, like I said, she got a 2,000 mile drive to get to her mama's house. 2,000 miles. You know what I mean? Not even like 2 hours into the trip, maybe like an hour and a half into the trip, the bitch car break down. No. The car don't break down. She run out of gas. This the game though. Bitch run out of gas, right? She calling her family. They ain't got nothing for her. So who she call? She called me. And she break the whole shit down, right? She like, damn, you know what? I ain't gonna lie. I got drunk Sunday night. I missed my court date. And I was trying to go back to my mom's house. She's like, I'm just all out of line. You know what I mean? I'm fucking up. I know I'm fucking up. Wooty wooty whoop. I'm over here such and such. I'm stuck. I ain't got no gas. Wooty wooty whoop. So I Western Union the bitch some money to go back to the town that she was trying to, elope from. And, I give her gas money to get back over there and get a room when she get there so she can handle her business. The bitch get over there and she fumbles again. You know what I mean? So this just give you an idea of the shit that she was doing, right? Now, at the time, like I said, I'm looking at it like, man, this old punk ass bitch, after all the shit I done did for this bitch, she doing this and she doing that and wooty 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 whoop, right? But like I said, the shit ended up going bad. The bitch was long gone. And I was examining that situation, man. See, this is how you become a better pimp, right? This is how you pimp on future hoes better than you pimped on that hoe, right? This is how you avoid making the same mistakes with future hoes that you made with that hoe, right? You got to take inventory of your game. You know what I mean? This is if you want to be the best you that you could be. You know what I mean? This is if you want to get the most out the game and get the most to the game, right? So, like I said, I'm examining the situation, and I had to tell myself, like, damn, you know what? That car was big to that bitch, right? Now, I could have got her to see things differently in the future, but what I should have did, if I could go back, what I would have did is kept that car. You know what I mean? Because right now her maturity level is too is she ain't at the right level of maturity to understand where I'm coming from and how I see things, right? So let me just pimp through this situation, deal with whatever bullshit I got to deal with this car, you know what I mean? And then, you know, after the fact, then I can get her, you know, as we continue, I can get her to understand, you know, why I see things the way I do, right? You know what I mean? But I was so prideful, I let my pride get the best of me, you know what I mean, because of the situation I was dealing with the car. But I didn't understand. See, this is what you got to understand, right? Like, the bitch, she holed up and saved up, you know what I mean? Well, not saved up. I'm the one, you know. But basically my point is, she holed up and went through all kind of shit, and her hoe don't pay for that car, right? Now, you know, a lot of times as the pimping, man, you got to sometimes look at things from a hoe's perspective and think about the shit that hoes go through every night to get a respectable trap. Every night. You know what I mean? Just think about the shit a hoe go through in one night to get a respectable trap. You know what I mean? See, you got to look at it just like, you know, sometimes pimpin' be thinking like, man, this bitch she just think I just sit back and have my hand out and collect the money, and, you know, bitch don't know what a pimp go through. She don't know what a pimp got to deal with and all that other type of shit. Yeah, well, you got to understand what the hoe dealing with too. You got to understand what the hoe going through too. You know what I mean? And, you know, just like hoes got to understand that pimps go through certain shit that they ain't gonna never go through. Hoes go through certain shit that a pimp ain't gonna never go through. So you got to understand that. You have to appreciate that. You have to respect that. You know what I mean? And that's not where I wasn't looking at it from that standpoint at the time. I was just on some shit like, man, I'm gonna get this motherfucker back and just take the L that I done, you know, this far into the situation. It's an L. I'm not gonna make the L bigger. I'm gonna just cut the L off right now and get his car back. You know what I mean? When really I should have been thinking about it like, you know what? This hoe ain't never had a car like this. You know, she done made all kind of sacrifices just to be rewarded in the game. She didn't know I was getting her this car. You know what I mean? I took the car and you know, it was a gift to her, a birthday gift, right? But she didn't know I was giving her this car. But nonetheless, hoes go through certain shit and make sacrifices expecting to be rewarded for what they do in the game, right? And this was her reward. And she felt so good about the shit, man. And, you know, I'm not thinking about her perspective. I'm not looking at it from where she's standing like, she young. She was like 21 at the time. You know what I mean? She 21. The town where she from, you know what I mean? Her peers at 21 years old, ain't nobody living the lifestyle that she living. Ain't nobody at 21 years old that she went to school with doing the things that she doing, touching the kind of money that she touching, going to the places that she going. You know what I mean? Just, you know, learning what she's learning, you know, being a blessing to her family the way she being a blessing to her family. You know, I'm not considering all of that. On top of the fact that, like, every night, this bitch is making sacrifices and going through certain shit, expecting to be rewarded. And here's her reward. And here I go taking the shit from her. You know what I mean? I wasn't looking at it from that standpoint. I'm just on some like, oh, it's just a car. You know what I mean? She get another car. You know what I mean? So, do you think it broke her spirit for the game? It definitely did. It definitely did. You know what I mean? And you know what? It was like 5 years later, right? It was like 5 years later, man. The bitch done squared up. She working a square job. She out the game. All the shit, right? It was like 5 years after the situation ended, right? Where me and her wasn't rocking no more. 5 years later, I just so happened to be passing through her area, right? And I pulled up on her. You know what I mean? And I had to let her know I was wrong. You know what I mean? I had to articulate those words, you know what I mean, out my mouth. I was wrong. You know what I mean? I had to let her know what I didn't consider at the time, what I consider now. You know what I mean? What I learned from the situation, how it made me better. I had to let her know that. You know what I mean? Because, you know, I don't want it to be on her mind like, you know what, like, I went through all this shit in the game and, you know what I mean, you know, this is what the game is. Nah, I ain't want her to think, you know, this is what the game is. You know? Now, of course, she was rewarded in other ways, you know what I mean, but that situation right there was the beginning of the end. And had I handled it differently, had I held myself accountable at the time the way I was supposed to, ain't no telling how that could have played out in a much better way. You know what I mean? Because I was a good hoe. And, hey, it's fucked up, but sometimes pimping do that, man. Sometimes you got situations where a good pimp, a well-intended pimp, you know what I mean, who want the world for the bitch, sometimes you can fuck up, man, and ruin a good hoe. It happens, man. But see, like I said, this is some accountability for your ass. You know, you got to hold yourself accountable and look at shit like that realistically so that you can be better moving forward, so that you don't do another hoe like that. You know what I mean? So that you can be much better to the next hoe. Like I say all the time, man, pimping's supposed to get greater with every hoe that blow. So, you know, because now I have that level of accountability for myself, you know what I mean? I can not only hold a woman accountable, but get her to understand accountability with so much more clarity, because I have more clarity myself. You know what I mean? You can't teach a bitch accountability if you don't fully understand it and fully exercise it yourself. You know what I mean?
Let's go. You see, I, the God anointed, game appointed PI since knee high. Knew that God appointed me to be fly. My reply to the blessing, only one decision for me, man, that integrated and demonstrated it's obligatory. Okay. So begins the story, these blessings I'm not in.